If Binghamton wanted ghosts, he would give him a haunting he'd never forget. That night, as Binghamton sat in his office, feeling triumphant, the lights began to flicker. A cold wind swept through the room. Though the tropical night was still, Wally Binghamton. A voice moaned from the shadows. Binghamton gripped his desk. Who's there? Carpenter? Is that you? 3 figures emerged from the darkness, draped in tattered, seaweed-covered canvas. Their faces were painted a ghostly white. We are the crew of PT-13, the lead ghost said, a voice that sounded suspiciously like Mikhail's through a tin can. We've come for the man who brought us back. Why? Binghamton screamed and bolted for the door, only to find the ghost of PT-13 blocking his path. He ran for his jeep, but the vehicle seemed to move on its own, steered by an invisible hand, or perhaps a very short Gruber hiding under the dashboard. By dawn, Binghamton was found shivering in the air raid shelter, clutching a Bible and promising to never speak the number 13 again. The 73 was promptly repainted, and the ghosts returned to their bunks, exhausted but victorious. Chapter 5. Love in the time of turpentine. Amidst the chaos of war and pranks, a genuine heart began to ache. Lester Gruber, the crew's resident hustler and machinist, had been writing to a girl back in Brooklyn named Ginger. To impress her, he had sent a photo of himself in a commander's uniform, Mikhail's uniform, to be exact. He never expected Ginger to join a USO troop. He never expected her to show up on Taratupa. "Skip, you gotta help me," Gruber pleaded, looking like a man about to face a firing squad. "She thinks I'm a hero. She thinks I run the whole Navy," Mikhail sighed. He saw the genuine fear in Gruber's eyes, not of the Japanese, but of losing the love of a good woman. 5 minutes, Gruber. I'll give you 5 minutes to be a commander. The charade was elaborate. The crew dressed in their best whites. Mikhail played the part of the lowly ensign, opening doors for Commander Gruber. When Ginger stepped off the plane, she was radiant. She ran into Gruber's arms. "Oh, Lester, I knew you'd be a big man out here." For 5 minutes, Gruber lived the dream. He issued orders, he inspected the troops, and he looked into Ginger's eyes with a sincerity that no rank could convey. But the truth has a way of surfacing. Captain Binghamton, spotting the USO troop, arrived to greet them. He saw Gruber in the commander's stripes. "Gruber, what in the name of the Great White Fleet are you wearing?" The silence was deafening. Ginger looked from the captain to Lester. The stripes on his shoulders suddenly felt like lead weights. I can explain, Pussycat," Gruber whispered. Mikhail stepped forward. "Captain, this was a secret mission, a test of personnel morale." Binghamton wasn't buying it. He was about to explode when Ginger spoke. She walked up to Gruber and touched the cheap fabric of his stolen uniform. "Lester," she said softly, "I didn't come 6,000 miles to see a commander. I came to see you." She turned to Binghamton. "Captain, if you're looking for a hero, you're looking at the wrong man. The heroes are the ones who stay behind when the lights go out. And Lester, he's my hero, stripes or no stripes." Binghamton, for once, was silenced by the sheer weight of a woman's devotion. He grumbled something about irregularities and stomped off. Gruber looked at Ginger, his eyes wet. "I'm just a machinist, Ginger. I fix engines and I swipe champagne." "I know," she smiled, kissing him. "And you're the best machinist in the Navy." Epilogue. The horizon of peace. The war continued, but the spirit of Taratupa had changed. The pirates of PT-73 were still there, defying the odds and the regulations. Binghamton still plotted, and Mikhail still grinned. But as the crew gathered on the beach for one last luau before their next patrol, they knew they were part of something unique. They were a family forged in the heat of the Pacific and the absurdity of the human heart. Mikhail looked out at the PT-73, bobbing gently in the moonlit lagoon. He thought of the Sultan, the alligator, the ghosts, and the lovers. He knew the world was on fire. But here, on this tiny patch of sand, they had found a way to survive with their souls intact. "To the 73, Mikhail said. raising a coconut shell of Willie's special batch. To the 73, the crew roared, and across the water, in his dark office, Captain Binghamton looked out his window. He saw the firelight on the beach and heard the laughter. He sighed, reached into his desk, and pulled out a hidden bottle of McHale's moonshine. Wow, 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 he whispered, and took a drink. The end. Pacific Embers. The Command of Love. Prologue. The humidity of duty. The South Pacific was not merely a place, it was an entity. It breathed through the thick, salt-laden air of Taratupa, a humid shroud that clung to the skin like a desperate lover. Captain Wallace B. Binghamton sat in his office, the overhead fan groaning in a rhythmic, agonizing cycle that mirrored his own mounting blood pressure. He was a man of order, or at least, a man who desperately wished to be. But Taratupa was a land of chaos. A base governed more by the whims of the sea and the clever machinations of one commander, Quentin McHale, than by the naval handbook. Binghamton stared at the request on his desk. Garter belts. The nurses were demanding garter belts. Wow, he whispered to the empty room, his voice cracking with the strain of 1,000 small indignities. Wow, 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 garter belts. He was a supply officer in a world at war, a commander of men who seemed more interested in the local fauna and illicit stills than the looming threat of the Imperial Japanese Navy. But today, the threat was closer to home. Admiral Iron Pants Rafferty was coming, a man whose name struck fear into the hearts of any officer with a smudge on his record or a civilian in his quarters. And Binghamton's records were nothing but smudges. Chapter 1. The Fever of Deception. The decision was born of desperation. If he was sick truly, medically incapacitated, he could not be held responsible for the state of the base. He could appoint an acting commander, a sacrificial lamb, to lead Rafferty through the mud and the madness. My stomach acid could start a car. Binghamton groaned to his loyal, if bumbling aide, Elroy Carpenter. Take it easy on the pills, sir, Carpenter urged, his voice trembling. They give you such indigestion. I don't care, Binghamton shouted, then winced as the sound echoed in his skull. If I am sick, someone else faces the Admiral. Someone like McHale. The name tasted like copper in his mouth. McHale, the saltwater skipper, with a crew of cutthroats, and a smile that suggested he knew exactly which rules were being broken and by whom. To put McHale in charge was a risk, but a calculated one. Under the scrutiny of Iron Pants, McHale would surely hang himself with his own disregard for protocol. When McHale arrived at the infirmary, he found Binghamton draped in a silk robe, looking remarkably healthy despite his dramatic size. Oh, McHale, Binghamton wheezed. I'm in bad shape. The doctors, they don't know. McHale, ever the opportunist, saw the shadow of the game. He adjusted the pillow behind the captain's head with a mock tenderness that bordered on the insulting. Don't you worry, Captain. You just rest. Lieutenant Carpenter and I will handle everything. No, Binghamton gasped, pushing Carpenter aside. Carpenter is a boob. I am appointing you, acting base commander McHale. And Parker here, acting executive officer. Ensign Charles Parker's eyes widened behind his thick spectacles. It was the promotion of a lifetime or a death sentence. As they left the infirmary, the tropical sun beat down on the lagoon. McHale looked at Parker, the weight of the base suddenly on their shoulders, but in McHale's eyes there was a spark. Taratupa was about to change. Chapter 2. The Sultan and the Moon. War is often defined by its interruptions. The news of a VIP arrival shattered the brief peace McHale had established. Sultan Karim of Marami and his 3 daughters were being evacuated through Taratupa. To Binghamton, still recovering in his ward, it was another chance to shine. To the crew of the PT-73, it was a glimpse of a world they had almost forgotten, a world of royalty, grace, and silk. When the 73 boat pulled alongside the Sultan's craft, the air changed. The crew, usually a rowdy bunch of grease-stained sailors, fell silent. Standing on the deck were 3 women who seemed carved from the moonlight itself. Virgil Edwards, the boat's resident heartthrob, found his breath hitched in his throat. Greetings, Your Highness, McHale said, his voice dropping an octave in respect. I am Commander McHale. We are here to serve you.